Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph, naturally. Today's question: why are ENFP women so masculine? What an odd question. And the only reason why I say it's odd is because I'm not entirely convinced that ENFP women specifically are super masculine. At least not really in my experience. And I'm talking neutrally and colloquially. I'm not necessarily talking from a perspective of Jungian analytical psychology per se. It's just I've always found them to be quite feminine, actually, myself. Especially with one particular ENFP that I'm very close with in my life. At least she's close to me, and we're trying to get closer as time goes on. But yeah, just her and I need to have a better communication and a better relationship between two. I mean, it's really hard, because I'm an ENP, she's an ENP, and there's a lot of problems there relating to, to communication, because it's all about her comfort, it's all about my comfort. Can that being an issue? But I've always seen her as a very feminine person. I always have. I typically see ENFP women as very feminine in general. That's not to say that they can actually be pretty masculine. It's not to say that they can't, So, by the way, tonight's cigar is a La Raña Azulejo, one of my most favorites. Enjoying myself here amongst the cotton bugs on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Hope you enjoy the stillness of the water and the ambiance. I always like enjoying bodies of water because I have expert intuition hero, and I felt it appropriate to film this location, given that this particular episode is about an extroverted intuition hero, and expert intuition hero is all about water, and I always feel my most relaxed and calm when I'm around bodies of water, and as much as they would as well, because each of the cognitive functions are attached to individual elements. Extroverted sensing is attached to wind, introverted intuition is attached to fire. Why do you think all the high NI users, or at least NI optimistics, are pyromancers? They all do. They love them. They're fireworks. They love them. Their fire and their explosions. Whereas extroverted sensing optimistics really, really love the wind, for example. Extroverted intuition optimistics really love the water. And introverted sensing optimistics really love the earth. They like to go into the mountains, like to be among the rocks. It's one of their favorite things. So, yeah. But I'm not going to use this particular episode to talk about, how masculine ENFP women are, because, honestly, I just don't see it. But there are some exceptions, and we're actually going to be discussing those exceptions for this episode. The exceptions, and there are definitely some exceptions. But we need to discuss why there's exceptions, and the main reason is ultimately human nurture. Women have fundamentally transformed as a sex, basically, within the human race, especially in terms of Western society. And I actually had the pleasure of watching a show produced by an INTJ woman who is basically mocking women and their changes within Western society. And it's so funny to me to watch INTJ women be the ones mocking masculine women, basically, in Western society. I mean, the first time I ever experienced it, I was on a date with Andy, my INTJ ex, and we went on this date, and she introduced me to Ali Wong, and I have to say, this is one of the best parts of my relationship with Andy, is because it's like, hey, I get to watch this really cool INTJ Asian comedy chick explain to me how she thinks it's just so stupid, like literally complaining about the women's movement and how the women's movement, got women, jobs, and they're all working, so then, hey, corporations can benefit from, doubling the workforce and and then ultimately destroying the family in the process. And she's like, girl, what is your problem? Because Ali Wong's being like, we had it made, being, not having to have the responsibility of having a job, like that's amazing, and it's so interesting because I was actually talking to my ESTP friend. You all know him by Elad. He's on the Discord server. Mr. ESTP Therapy himself, a fantastic fellow. And I'm actually very happy he's in the community. He provides a unique perspective. But he was actually having a conversation today with me on the phone about women, basically, and how you can all notice the women who are at the top of the pecking order when it comes to other women just happen to be the women who are in a marriage and are stay-at-home moms. They're basically the zenith or the top of the pecking order when it comes to women. And he's like, the bottom of the pecking order are the women who are single moms, have to have a job, and have children with different men. Those are at the bottom of the pecking order. So you have the top and the bottom, according to him. And this is coming from, the most masculine of all the types. He's an ESTP. And I entirely agree with his perspective, about that. That's definitely a thing, a big thing, and it's just so silly to me, how women consistently fall into this masculine trap as they are, conditioned by society to do so. But to add to that, something that I've been actually really pushing recently on the Discord server, something Railgun, who is another ESTP. It's kind of odd how ESTPs end up being the arbiters of what is masculine and what is feminine. It's so interesting. In as much as ISFJs are also the arbiters of what is masculine and feminine, because you have the ISFJ as the most feminine, colloquially, the most feminine of all the types, and then you have the ESTP, who is colloquially and on paper the most masculine of all of the types. Basically they're throwing around their thoughts on what constitutes feminine behavior and what constitutes masculine behavior. And for the most part, they're basically correct. And they live that way. They are the best examples by their own behavior as to what that behavior looks like, as colloquially understood. So, wow, that's good. That tastes amazing. It's got a little bit of hint of blueberry to it. It's fantastic. You guys think I should sell some C.S. Joseph cigars one day? What do you guys think about that? Some C.S. Joseph high quality fine tobacco. You guys think I should get into that? I don't know. Maybe some of the men in the community would enjoy that. It's not like you'd ever see a woman smoking a cigar, and then when I see a woman smoking a cigarette, I am completely and utterly grossed out. By the way, grossed out. Actually, I had an encounter recently with a woman who was smoking, and I was just like, really? Just because I smoke cigars doesn't mean that I'm okay with you smoking cigarettes. Cigars aren't going to do much to you, especially with how little I actually smoke. So come on, man. Chewing tobacco is the worst thing you could do. The second worst thing you could do is cigarettes. And third worst thing you could do is actually vape. And then, and then there's cigars, which doesn't actually go in your lungs, and it's only in your mouth. And, it's just something to enjoy. And it's not exactly something you get addicted to or whatever. And, oh well. I'm not addicted to it at all. I could never smoke a cigar again, and it wouldn't bother me. But I do smoke cigars because it helps me maintain a higher level of concentration. Not focus, but concentration. It's different. Concentration is SI, focus is NI. And helps me with memory recall, to improve my memory when it comes to delivering these episodes, for example, among other things. So, anyway, Railgun exposed me recently to this show about women called Working Moms by Catherine Reitman, and she's an INTJ, and she's just making fun of the stupidity involved with how women's lives are entirely ruined when they put their careers above everything else. Most women out there would emotionally respond to that saying well, we're not putting our career above our family, but as much as they say that, if you actually like judge them by their actions, you'll see that that's actually what is happening. And as I've said before, you can't really take a woman at her word, not because she's a liar, but because she changes her mind a million times a day, and what she says doesn't line up with how she acts, because her hormones cause her to mentally change her mind multiple times a day anyway. Again, I'm not saying that women are liars. I'm just saying you just can't take them at their word, because biology, and that's all there is to it. Not a bad thing. Besides, it's a wiser prospect for a person to be judging other human beings by their actions anyway, so big whoop. I don't care how... if you guys think I'm misogynist for saying so, then you guys are just nothing more than ignorant, and probably just as bad as the people who claimed Socrates was corrupting the youth in Athens and had him executed. Thank you for contributing to your kangaroo court that is Western society. I'm sure you'll really be happy. And that's what Catherine Reitman's main point was within this Netflix series. There's at least 4 seasons on it, and Railgun and I have been going through it, just watching the absolute utter stupidity of these women, these career women, and basically all the problems that they're causing in their life consistently. And there's these little subtle hints. Catherine Reitman is actually the main character also within the story, but even though she created the story and wrote it, and her actual real life husband is also her husband in the show, which is also fantastic. And they really, really focus hardcore on gender issues in a very subtle way, a very similar subtle way, just like Seth MacFarlane would in Family Guy or in The Orville. If you guys haven't seen The Orville yet, you're out of your minds. You need to definitely see The Orville. It really, really combats social issues and exposes this ridiculousness of modern social issues there. And so I recommend the show as well. Seth MacFarlane does an amazing job. So, but the bottom line is that ENFP women, let's bring it back to ENFP women. ENFP women, because of the extroverted thinking child, and also because of ISTJ subconscious, because they're so focused on their status and their reputation and all these things, they are extremely at risk of falling for the society's dumb, stupid narrative that, hey, you should sacrifice your fertile years, which is 18 to 26 basically, for, training in college, getting educated so that you can go to school, go to college, get a job, instead of actually having children. And and that's ultimately that's masculine. That's super masculine. Whatever happened to the days where women actually wanted to be mothers? The societal conditioning has been absolutely ridiculous. Most people don't even realize that the women's suffrage movement was actually created by a man who utilized Edward Bernays' manipulative propaganda-based tactics to actually start the movement. Edward Bernays is an ENTP. He wrote the book Propaganda. His teacher was Gustave Le Bon, who wrote the book The Crowd, and then one of the proteges of Bernays in modern times is Douglas Murray. He wrote the book The Madness of Crowds. And if you just read these 3 books in order of their chain of custody, you'll start to realize how easy it is to manipulate people. And today, the family suffers while corporations end up doubling the workforce and end up treating women like crap. It's... And then the women blame the men for it. They blame the men, when it's reality, it's just a very small percentage of people that are benefiting from that, while everybody else, including families, actually suffers. We're no longer a child-rearing society. We are a child support society. And that's pretty sad if you think about it. That's entirely sad, and it's entirely ridiculous. I have an INTJ son. And having an INTJ son is a very humbling experience, because if you really want to destroy, absolutely annihilate an INTJ child, regardless of their sex, split up their parents, split up their family. If you want to destroy them, that's what you do, to the point where it basically ruins their life for the rest of their existence. It completely ruins their life. And that's really sad. And that's basically the gift that masculine women, as a result of all of this societal conditioning that starts literally in school and whatnot, because we're just trying to create a workforce. We just want you to maintain and become the proletariat. We don't want your bloodline to exist. Your bloodline means nothing to us. Only our bloodline matters. Think about it. Like, you find this out in like the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The elite and the rich actually have a completely different way to educate their children compared to poor people. Poor people will tell you how to save your money, which is a stupid idea. It's very stupid to save your money. You should be investing your money at any opportunity that you get, because the value of the dollar due to inflation alone is destroyed. I mean, $1 today is worth about 2.5 cents of what it was originally worth back when the greenback first came out in like 1914 or 1917, in the early 1900s, basically when the greenback first came. And that's entirely ridiculous. Entirely ridiculous. Congratulations. Y'all played yourselves. Congratulations. You're all born into this system. You guys are part of the Matrix now. You're literally born in the Matrix and you don't even know. And these women out there are like defending the Matrix. They're defending this concept. It's entirely ridiculous. It's one of the reasons why we created the special interest group known as Jungian Sexuality on the Discord server. If you're not on the Discord server, there should be a link in the description. It's a Linktree link, which would be linktr.ee/CS Joseph. Scroll to the bottom and click the link so you can join the Discord server. Do your verification through Alt-Identifier, and then do your other verification by accepting the code of conduct, and you have access to the Discord. And then after that, go down to the rules channel in the Jungian Sexuality Special Interest Group section and just hit the -agree, type it in, and then the bot will assign you the role, and then you have access, and then you can enjoy the female issues channel, or the male issues channel, or the Jungian Sexuality channel, or there's tons of books and resources and education that you can utilize to free yourself and actually become a feminine woman again, and actually work hard to actually become a feminine woman, something that your mother should have taught you. But no, by now, statistically, she actually was a career woman as well, and potentially ruined your life as a woman and ruined your opportunity at happiness, which is ridiculous. In as much as, obviously, men's lives are ruined constantly. I mean, like, seriously, like, why should I as a man work so hard for a quarrelsome and disrespectful woman underneath my roof? Like, I'm not going to tolerate it. Solomon wrote in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, he wrote, better to be on the corner of one's own roof than in the home with a quarrelsome or disrespectful woman. Or, and then he also, he's an ENTP. He married an ESTP girl who basically refused to have sex with him, and he felt so disrespected by that, especially after everything that he had done for her and all this super mega hard work that he was doing for the kingdom and for her, and she still turned him down anyway. She got, like, mega entitled, and she did not know how good she had it, basically. And then, boom, 1,000 woman harem was his basic response. You can find that in Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 6. Pretty sad situation, how she just basically turned him down like that. And, he's the king, right? But he's an ENTP, like, why should ENTPs or even any SI inferior man have to put up with that from a woman? That's ridiculous, especially after how hard they work. Because SI inferiors, and this is no different for, like, ENFP women, for example, SI inferiors have this thing where we place an extreme amount of value on our introverted sensing inferior. So let's give an example, actually. This is an example directly from my relationship with Railgun, okay? So she's NI inferior, okay? So NI inferior has this thing where it just doesn't know what it wants because it's afraid of wanting the wrong thing. It's afraid of making a commitment because as soon as it makes a commitment, all the other choices, all the other options it has goes away. And it has to learn how to have faith that once it makes a commitment, once it makes a choice, new doors will open in front of that choice, and then they get to keep choosing. But they're always so afraid that there's not going to ever be any doors open in front of them. So for Railgun to make the choice, to choose me, basically, to choose me as her man in her life, as her husband and the father for children, for her to make that decision, to take that risk, basically, because NI inferior is all about risk, it's a big deal because she doesn't just want anybody. it's funny because ESTP statistically have the most casual sex out of everyone other than INFJs because they're lust types. But, like, she wanted me, and she's really only wanted me, according to her. And so as a result of her making that choice, her choosing me, right, to be the man in her life, that's something that's extra, extra, extra special because that's her NI inferior going that far to make that choice for desire, right? Well, let's look at it from an introverted sensing perspective. Like, she places an insane amount of value on her choice, and she expects me to put an insane amount of value on her choice to choose me above everybody else, right? Well, from an introverted sensing inferior perspective, I put a lot of emphasis on my effort, and so do ENFP women, to the point where it's like, hey, you better be grateful for the high amount of effort that I put in your direction. Because if I'm working hard, and I outwork everybody, I haven't met anyone who's got a bigger work ethic than me. Not yet, anyway. And I'm sure they exist. But, like, I put so much effort, like, I expect my woman to treat my effort as if it's the most sacred and important thing in her life. The most important thing in her life. In as much as Railgun would expect me to place her NI inferior choice of me as the most important thing in my life, right? That's how it works. The problem is that from a masculine to feminine perspective, women don't care, and this is according to the Red Pill Praxeology as presented in the Rational Male volumes 1 through 5. According to Rollo Tomasi, women do not care about a man's relationship investment. Women in general do not care about a man's effort that he puts forward in a relationship or a marriage, right? So it's extremely difficult for introverted sensing inferior men in that situation because effort is seen as something that's actually more on the beta side of a woman's hypergamy, okay? Because effort is all about, parental investment, provisioning, protection, those types of things. But because women can provision for themselves now because they're career moms, for example, or because they're career women, because they're taking on this masculine role, they aren't really attracted to the beta male side of their hypergamy anymore because they can provide the beta male side of their hypergamy for themselves and to themselves. And this causes them to become more masculine and incapable of knowing what it means to actually submit to a man. So men are expected to do that thing that they teach in church. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, he who gave himself up for her. Inasmuch as I give and have given up myself for the women in my life because of the super high amount of effort I put towards them, right? The super high effort that I put in, right? But that's, seen as a very beta thing because that's just the beta buck side of a woman's hypergamy, basically. So it's not so it goes underappreciated. Imagine though what it's like for an ENFP woman to be in a relationship with a man who takes her effort for granted, right? I mean, even Railgun is guilty at times, oftentimes, of taking my effort that I put towards her for granted, right? Why? Well, most women do. Most women have been conditioned to take male effort, male investment in a relationship for granted because that kind of investment, that kind of effort is something a woman is conditioned to provide for herself. She is taught by her family, even by her dumb idiot fathers, okay, who tell her, hey, men out there are no good, they're all just boys, they only want one thing, so just to be safe, you need to go to school, go to college, get a job, get a degree, right? Little do these fathers actually know that they're ruining their daughters' lives by actually having that perspective. Because their little girl has to spend her life basically on spend her fertile years on getting a degree, and also saddling herself up with what, $120,000 in debt at least. Really that's something we really want to go for, and that sucks. Because then you're expecting your ENFP little girl to be putting in that much more effort, especially when it comes time to do there. But then eventually that ENFP will hit 26 years of age. She'll realize that for the first time in her life, she's not able to compete with younger girls because the higher value men will go for the younger girls and no longer go for her. But she spent all that time to get a degree. So then she covers up with that loss of fertility, that loss of time, with entitlement. And that sucks. She ends up becoming super mega entitled. She becomes super mega depraved. She can't attract the highest value men anymore. So she ends up settling for a dude with a dad bod who ends up being this, beta male who lacks masculinity in a lot of cases. And then she ends up divorcing him later when she's in her late 30s because she's not the man she tried to change him into, basically, an alpha, and then that totally blows up, and then she just lost her family, and then she ends up being a cat mom and a dog mom. Can't really get any high value man to save her life. She ends up with loser, and goes from loser to loser to loser to loser, and then ultimately dies alone. Congratulations, fathers. You just destroyed your daughter's entire future. Congratulations, idiots. And this is something that ENFP women end up having to contend with. And it sucks. It really sucks for them. And I feel bad for them that they have to deal with this crap. Especially because they're usually, out of the 16 types, the kind of woman who's most likely to swallow that conditioning of being a career woman, hook, line, and sinker. And then they're at risk of being with losers or at risk of never being mothers at all. And never feeling fulfilled because they never had a mother. And then they find themselves at the lowest end of the pecking order. Things can get so bad that they end up becoming single moms and having children by different men, which is the lowest of the low when it comes to women. You could say that maybe a prostitute is just as low or lower. Sure, okay, I could grant you that. But like when all these women get together and they size each other up, because that's what women do when they get together, they're the lowest on the pecking order. Whereas the highest women on the pecking order, the women that are envied the most and women are jealous of the most, are the women who are married mothers who stay at home. And their man takes care of it all. And they actually have freedom. Great. They get to do what they want. Even to the point where they can become entrepreneurs after their children have grown, and actually be in a much better position instead of just being this little peon, working for Amazon distribution, for example. Sucks to be them. But hey, no one's really aware. No one's really aware of the consequences. No one really cares. Everyone's just sold on this thing, and everyone just imagines to themselves. Especially this INTP named Blessed on the Discord server. She imagines herself. Well, this is the path to happiness. Being this strong, independent career woman. That these ENFP women actually, swallow that narrative hook, line, and sinker. Why? Well, they do it because they have extroverted thinking child, because they're aware of what everyone thinks. And then it's like, hey, I want to have that status too. So that they think that getting a career will bring them that status. When the real flex, the real status, is by being that stay-at-home mother with a lot of children. And a man who wants her. A man who actually takes care of her feelings. A man who thinks highly of her. A man who elevates her. A man who doesn't make her feel unsafe or who doesn't make her feel uncomfortable. A man who is aware of her worries of the future and is able to prevent that worry by, putting forth his own investment and leading her so she doesn't have to lead, right? That's kind of ridiculous. But it happens. It happens all the time. All the time. And it's it's ridiculous. So ridiculous. And so these girls, they just don't really understand what the consequences are. And because these ENFP women end up having these fathers who actually feed their NI nemesis, and they get so worried that they're not going to find a man of any quality out there, that they end up buying this narrative. These ENFP women end up buying this narrative. And then as a result, these ENFP women become masculine. They become masculine over time, which is unattractive to men. Masculine women ultimately are unattractive to men. I'll be honest, I like masculine women. I like ESTPs and ISTPs and ENTJs and INTJs. I like SE user women, I do. But a lot of them are masculine when they're out there in the world. But at home, they're feminine. They're feminine to me, as it should be. I don't care if they're masculine to other people, but they need to be feminine to me. That's what I expect from them, because I consider them my treasure. They're my treasure. They're my, and because they are my treasure, it's like, okay, yeah, you're my treasure, so you be feminine here as my feminine treasure who submits to me and allows me to lead, instead of them being so insecure and so worried about their own future that they have to lead in the relationships and lead themselves, much like what Catherine Reitman is trying to mock all these crazy career women who eventually become moms while they're career women. Oh, gross. In that Netflix show, Working Moms. If you want to understand, guys, you want to understand, what women you should absolutely avoid, go watch Working Moms and see how the women act in there. See how great the gift of open hypergamy is. And then just see how miserable these women are. I'm sure Blessed, the INTP on the Discord server, would come to realize in short order just how miserable of an existence that actually is. Miserable that she's been literally gaslit by her family and gaslit by her own society in Europe, where she's at, to consider, hey, that's the best way to go. I'm a strong, independent woman. I have my career and it's all good. And it's like, okay, yeah, great, but you're never going to attract a high-value man. You're just going to end up being with a loser, and then you're going to end up divorcing him because he's a loser, and then you're going to end up destroying your children's lives in the process. What if you end up having an INTJ child, like I have, for example, or many other INTJ children out there whose parents split up and it literally ruined their life, destroying their SE inferior because their parents aren't sticking around. And part of being loyal to an SE inferior is to stick around. But the thing is that relationship with their parents has to be stick-aroundable. It has to be worth sticking around for. Well, it's only going to happen if people are acting out in their proper roles in a relationship. Something that rarely, if ever, actually happens. So I feel bad. Because this narrative of the career woman, the masculine woman, has become the affiliative. It has become the social norm. And ENFP women, they are affiliative. And that little TE child is there, and they don't have TI. They don't have TI to filter through the crap. So they end up accepting it. They end up accepting their programming of the matrix, basically. And then they end up unhappy. They end up insanely unhappy because of this. Great. I'm sure their dads really meant well. Only to see their daughters absolutely miserable. Their grandchildren's futures destroyed. And the cycle continues. And the generational sin just continues. There's nothing humble about a career woman. There's nothing humble about a masculine woman. You guys even remember the season 4 playlist here on the YouTube channel or on the podcast? Go listen or watch the season 4 playlist. What is the source of a woman's beauty? It is humility. Without humility, there is no submission. Without submission, they are an ugly woman. What exactly is submissive about a career woman? Why is that attractive? Why would a high-value man ever go for such a woman? Well, he won't. And ENFP women are at high risk. They are at extremely high risk of innocently accepting this programming, when their fathers should actually be there to help them prioritize being a great woman, a submissive woman, a beautiful woman, right? A healthy woman, a fit woman, a woman that actually knows how to change a diaper, a woman that's actually capable of being a mother, a woman who could actually reduce the burdens on a man's life instead of actually being a burden herself, right? But, society is telling this TE child, well, you'll accomplish a lot. You'll be respected. You'll be regarded. You'll have lots of money. Well, you know what, people? You can't take money with you when you die. You can't. There's only one thing you could take with you when you die. One thing. And that is your relationships with other people. And I promise you, if you've ever spoken to an ENFP woman on her deathbed, and I have, folks, I have. But if you speak to them, they will all tell you that they wish they'd have done it differently. Do not make the same mistake they did. But ultimately, it's because of the easy swallowing of this narrative, because these women's parents, especially their fathers, have been brainwashed by the stupidity that corporate America, corporatism, this corporatocracy within Western society, because they're afraid that, she's going to end up with some deadbeat dad who's not going to be there for his grandchildren or whatever. What a bunch of idiots. What happened to the fathers that would be around men? Like, for example, I have a daughter. Let's say she brings a guy around. He's like, oh, this is my boyfriend. I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm going to grill him. I'm going to be like, what's your value? Do you have any value? What are you doing? Do you know anything about entrepreneurship? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating organic, non-GMO food? Are you fit? What's your purpose? What's your life purpose? What are you all about? And here's the thing. If he doesn't have one, I will give him one. I will make him work. I'll make him work for me. I'll make him earn everything. Not unlike what happened to Isaac and Jacob, the sons of Father Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons had Father Abraham. Come on, folks. We all sung this in school. At least we used to. Those sons, when they found that they had a woman that they really wanted, guess what? Their fathers made them work for them, right? That's what happened. And that ended up becoming a huge... That ended up happening and became like a huge issue. A major issue, right? Because eventually, Jacob ended up having to marry Leah, and they had to work even harder to marry the girl he really wanted, which was Rachel, but he took both those sisters anyway, and he made it work. And then out from him came the 12 tribes of Israel, for example, right? And you can actually learn a lot about that family dynamic by reading the book The Red Tent. If you haven't read The Red Tent and you're an ENFP woman watching this, you probably should. But hey, don't take my word for it. Listen to the ENFP women on their deathbed telling you that they would have done it differently. Instead of getting, becoming that dog mom or becoming that cat mom or being that person who dies alone or being that person who has children by multiple men and is still a single mom and suffering. No. It's wrong. It's prime evil, folks. What? Because we're scared that there's no good men out there anymore? I make boys into men. There are men out there who will care enough to make boys into men. I expect that if my daughter any of my daughters, brings a man around, I will turn him into a man, and if he is resistant to that idea, I will make him get out of her life. That's the reality. That's what fathers are supposed to do. But no, fathers want to be lazy. No, they want to outsource their thinking to stupid Western society. Oh, my daughters need to go to school, go to college, get a job, waste her fertile years on getting a career so that she could be a working mom and then ruin her husband's life, ruin the fathers of her children's life, ruin her life, ruin the lives of her children, destroy their future. Congratulations, you played yourself, idiots. And people just are completely unaware of the consequences. It's ridiculous to me. So that's why ENFP women end up behaving masculine. They're victims. And then because they were victims of stupid from their parents, stupid from the society, they end up victimizing others. They end up victimizing their children, and the cycle repeats. And now we live in a world of fatherlessness. We live in a world where there isn't fathers around to hold boys accountable and turn those boys to men. We live in a world where there aren't fathers around to make sure that their little girls are on the path to happiness. In the last days I will send my prophet Elijah to you. He will turn the hearts of fathers to their sons and the hearts of sons to their fathers. Or else I will strike the land with a decree of utter destruction. It's the final two verses of the Old Testament. How are we not there already? We got to end this. ENFP women need to be shown that there's a different way. And there is a different way. If they position themselves for greatness, if they become queen archetype, as I describe in the queen archetype episode in the season 13 playlist, they become queen. And to become queen, they got to be healthy. They got to be fit. They have to have personal standards. They have to have personal boundaries. That's season 6 playlist. Why do you people refuse to watch and listen to seasons 4, 6, 13, and 31? I'm telling the truth. I am telling the consequences of you guys eating this bullshit that is being taught to you in your schools, by your family, by your ignorant family members who are all part of the Matrix and who will defend the Matrix even sometimes to their deaths. They're literally just agents of the Matrix to keep you enslaved to the corporatocracy of Western society that doesn't care about you being happy. They just care about how much money they can make off of your labor. They don't care that you have a kid at home. They don't care about your children's future. That's why, the women in the ego hacker community, I go out of my way for them to be an example of what their fathers should have been to them, so that they don't have to fall into this trap. That's why we created the Jungian Sexuality Special Interest Group to that end. So, women and men, don't let your women or your daughters become this. Women, do not let your daughters become this and have higher standards. It's not hard. Because here's the thing, if you position yourself for greatness, I promise you the high value men will find you. They're out there, and they will find you because they see that you are high value. And they will sweep you up off your feet. And then you are at the top of the pecking order. You are the subject of everyone's jealousy and envy, other women's envy and jealousy, because you are married to the high value man. You don't even have to work. Working is an option, not a requirement. Wow. That's a much better future prospect for a woman any day of the week. And they're much more happier for it. Why do you think that women are the most unhappiest they've ever been in Western society? They're sold the lie that, hey, be a career woman, be a career mom, it's all good. No, it's not. It's literally the path straight to hell. Hell on earth in your own life. Because you're basically being conditioned to be nothing more than a slave. And you'll have to put your slavery above your children and your children's future. Don't be that person. Men, you need to go out of your way to prevent this in the women and the daughters in your life. Women, you need to be helping other women and yourselves to position yourselves for greatness so that you too can become queens. Like Jared Leto said in that Kings and Queens song that he did. We're the kings and queens of promise. Well, this is a promise to you. I promise you a far greater amount of happiness and satisfaction in your life than you've ever experienced if you do it my way and not the way of this bullshit society. Mark my words. You will have a future, a better one, a future that is subject to the envy and jealousy of those in your life. I highly recommend it. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys tonight on the Discord.